First and foremost, I want to introduce myself. I'm Bill Manicus. I'm the Chief of Police here in Rotterdam. I've been here, well, if you ask the lieutenants, I've been here forever, but about 35 years I've been with the department. I want to thank everybody for coming. I know it's a commitment, but it speaks well, the volumes about you that you're willing to make that commitment. Quite frankly, we had conversations with numerous other organizations that they committed to being here, but we haven't heard back from them in probably 2-3 weeks. We send them reminders, we send them emails, we make phone calls. So although that might be a little frustrating for me personally, I see it as a good thing. Meaning, I don't think people have a lot of concerns about the way the Rotterdam Police Department is being run. But that being said, I want to make something very clear. Under the Governor's Executive Order 203, we have to do certain things, and we're going to do those things, but I don't want this to become, and we discussed this as a staff, this is not going to be just let's get the Rotterdam Police Department, check the boxes so we can send in our forms to the governor. We actually want to take this as an opportunity to get better, to learn, to grow as an organization. If people have concerns, we're going to work with anybody. We will always consider ourselves very transparent, but if we're not transparent to the level that the community wants us to be, we will be more transparent. That's not a problem for us. But that being said, if you would just, before I go on, I just want to, Deputy Chief Mike Brown's here. I got Lieutenant Kyle Gerard, Lieutenant Jeff Collins. They are patrol lieutenants. They're responsible for anybody you see in a patrol car or a uniform. That's their fault. Anything that goes wrong there, I blame them. Lieutenant Mail down there in the dress tie, he's the lieutenant of the detective division. He's responsible for all investigations and, quite frankly, anything else we tell him to do. Collectively, we're going to move through this, and what I want to do is, now that I've introduced them, is if you would just tell us what organization you represent in your name, so at least everybody else has an idea who's sitting here with them. There's a form in front of you, and this is strictly voluntarily. If you want to give us a contact, direct contact, that we can share with everybody, because if participant A wants to talk directly to participant C, we want to facilitate that if you're comfortable with it. It's not mandatory. If you don't want to fill it out, please don't. But if you want to, please fill it out so that we can collect them. We'll put together an email and send it to everybody that was here. If you wouldn't mind just introducing yourself and telling everybody who you are and what group you represent.
Hello everyone, my name is Kyle Canavale. I'm a patrolman with Rotterdam Police Department. I'm also the president of the Rotterdam Police Benevolent Association.
My name is Sean Simmons. I'm a patrolman with the Rotterdam Police Department. I'm also the vice president of the Rotterdam PD.
Which way do you want to go? Does it matter? Well, tell us who you are.
Hi, I'm Detective Claude Sawyer, Rotterdam Police Department.
Diane, would you mind going that? We'll go that way. Diane? Yeah.
Hi everybody, I'm Diane Flynn. I'm a social worker at Huntington High School.
Hi, I'm Sean, I'm the superintendent of law.
Would you mind being that? Oh, it doesn't matter. I don't mean to step. I couldn't even see you there.
Mike Bunger, I'm Director of Safety at SUNY Schenectady.
Stephanie Parker, social worker at High School.
Steve Signori, one of the town board members.
Hang on, I gotta interrupt. He's also kind of wearing two hats, and he's good for us. You're also the,
Schenectady County Public Defender.
he's the head of that group.
I'm Steve Thomas, I'm the town supervisor.
In the back?
I am Miriam Podesta, representing Schenectady County Community College. I am the Human Resources and Diversity Manager. I need you to know who I am, so this is what I look like without a mask on.
I'm Harish Bhatia, I'm with the Rotterdam Sunrise Club.
I'm Mike Shuren, I'm with the Rotterdam Sunrise Rotary also.
Harry Rolay, Student Success Coach at SUNY Schenectady County Community College.
You're the last contestant.
Yes, Tracy Chance. I'm the conflict defender for Schenectady County.
And just as a brief, very brief, the Rotterdam Police Department's been around since the early 40s. We have, at the current staffing level, we have 40 people. It'll be 41 relatively soon, so we're down. But anyway, we have a full-time 24-hour day service. We have a detective division, again, available 24 hours. We have 2 SROs, one in each of the school districts full-time. And then, of course, you have what we consider our command staff. These are the people over here that did statistical analysis there, if you put that stuff together. That's who we are. The governor's executive order 203 mandates certain things. I'm not gonna, it's 130 pages long, and we've read it, enjoyed it. But basically, the basic tenets of what we're responsible for doing, and I want to stress this, we're not responsible, we are responsible, but we can't, and I don't want to drive this. I want this to be driven by you, the public. You tell us what you want, where you want to go. We don't want to lead you anywhere. We want you to tell us where you want us to go. But the basic tenets are this: we're supposed to review the needs of the community that is served by this police agency and evaluate the department's current policies and procedures. We're supposed to establish policies that allow us, the police, to effectively and safely perform our duties. Involve the entire community in the discussion. That's something we seem to not be able to do. We're trying, and we will continue to try to get more people involved. Develop a policy recommendation as a result of this review. Offer a public comment part of this. That's going to be a little tricky because you can't really have public meetings. So we're thinking of many options, which would be like what's it called live streaming stuff.
Live streaming.
People can email in questions, those kinds of things. But we'll have to work that out in conjunction with you. And then we have a responsibility to present that plan to the town board. They have to accept it and agree to it, ratify it, and then we send that on to the governor's office, and they do whatever review they want to do. That's the basic, broken down what we're supposed to do here. Anybody wants to read this 130-page thing, I can send it to you in a PDF, not a problem. But that being said, we sent to everyone, and we provided it here in hard copy form, things we thought by looking at other agencies, other police agencies, and reading through the governor's playbook, that you would want to know. We thought we would send them beforehand. It would give you an opportunity to review it, and you might have questions, and to kind of facilitate the flow of information. That being said, what I'm going to do is, we'll go through it up here briefly. What I don't want to do is turn this into a marathon and keep you people captive, but I also want to stay as long as we need to stay. So the deputy chief is going to go through those things right now. At any time, if you have a question, we're pretty informal. Shout, yell, throw things at us, whatever you have to do to get our attention, and we'll be happy to answer any questions you have. But please keep in mind this: if there's something we've given you that you don't think's enough, we'll get it for you. Pretty much, and if there's a question you have on any of the information you gave us, or we gave you, we'll be able to explain how we got where we directed. Mike? Or Frank? Anybody? What's that? Well, yeah, I guess we could say that. Yeah, that's probably a good point. I guess as a point of departmental bragging, it's one of my best job descriptions. I get to take credit for the work of a lot of other people, the good credit. This department, the Rotterdam Police Department, we've been accredited by the State Department of Criminal Justice since 2001, so nearly 20 years. What the State Department of Criminal Justice accreditation program does is set standards for us that we have to meet constantly. They send us updates, they come and review our things, they physically come every 5th year and go through our building and ride around with cops to make sure everybody's doing what we're supposed to do. That 5-year review, which is an actual on-site review, will be next fall. We just went through the process of starting to update our manual to comply with the new language that the Department of DCJS, Department of Criminal Justice, is mandating in response to the social justice movement. And you'll see some of those things. And quite frankly, the use of force policy you have, we just received an update, a language update from them. We just made the change the other day. So we have that. Do we have that available? Yeah, you should have that. The new policy. If you look, you'll see you have 2 use of force policies. There's language change in one of them. So obviously there's language change. But that being said, Mike, unless I forgot something else?
No.
Okay. And I'm going to stand over here so I can see you.
Okay, we're just going to go through.
Hey, Bill.
You should have the packets with you, the one that's up on the board. I pushed those out to you a few weeks ago, and I know that was a lot of information. I know it was a lot to go through. Again, we'll take as long as we need to take going over that information tonight, or as quickly as you guys see fit, depending on questions that you guys may have. So our first slide here, and again, the information that we put together is based on what we felt were in the national thing that's going on right now. This is some of the information that we felt was most important to push out to you. Again, after tonight, if you guys have more that you want us to look at, more information that you want us to get, that's not a problem. So our first slide here, and we're going to go back through a few years of our search warrants that we write. So you'll see that so far in 2020, there has been 38 total search warrants that have been written. You'll see that there are 4 for residences. Those could be situations where there's a burglary investigation and maybe we have information that there's some stolen property in a house. So if we develop enough information, we'll get a search warrant to search that house.
Could you just explain to people that may not understand, how we get a search warrant? Like what we have to do to apply and actually receive a search warrant?
Okay, so for us to get a search warrant, we have to come up with enough probable cause that we develop through our investigations, and we develop that information, we write the warrant, that warrant goes before a judge, and the judge deems it whether or not we had enough information or not. If we don't have enough information, the judge won't sign the warrant. So any search warrant that is signed and that we execute is okay by a judge. The judge reads it over, agrees that we had enough information for the warrant to go through. So these are all valid warrants. Judges signed off on all of these 38 warrants that were executed so far this year. We've done 4 residents, 2 vehicle, 4 electronic devices. Sometimes that's computers, sometimes it's cell phones. You see there's 27 records. That could be bank records, that could be phone records. We do most, you'll see in all of our slides, records is what we do mostly. And then you'll see 1 for a person. That particular case was an emotionally disturbed person who was holed up in a house making threats, and we needed a search warrant to be able to go into the house to rectify that situation safely. It ended up we didn't go into the house. We try not to. We take as much time outside and go through negotiations to get them to come out, which is what happened in that situation. But we need to have the search warrant in place and ready. If something emergency goes off and we need to get into the house quickly, we have to have the search warrant in place. Does anybody have any questions with that? I guess I forgot to mention. So there was 1 warrant issued with no-knock authority. So what a no-knock warrant is if you, again, this is signed by a judge and you have to develop the information, and you have to show that evidence could be seized, somebody's life could be in danger. You have to show reasons why you want to enter into a residence with no-knock authority. And you can see that we may get search warrants that give us no-knock authority, but it doesn't always mean that we execute it in that way. There are several drug cases where we may get a search warrant with no-knock authority, but we try to maybe pull the target off in a vehicle. So let's say we have no-knock authority for a residence, but we know who our suspect is or target is, and we decide it's safer for us to try to stop that person in a car, a vehicle on the road, rather than breaking down his door and going through the door. So a lot of times we try to do it that way. Does anybody have any questions?
Mike, I just want to point out, I think in one of the next slides or one of the years, we did actually execute a no-knock, correct?
Yes.
Just so everybody's clear, when we do that, we generally don't do that. Meaning we, the Rotterdam Police, we normally contact the state police, ERT, their emergency response team. They come and do that because they do nothing but train on how to enter those buildings safely and securing evidence. I know in one of those buildings, the meth lab or whatever it was.
It was, yes.
They have a whole team that not only has the ability to enter a home safely through tactically, but they're trained in basically meth labs, how, hazardous waste and those types of things. I think that's one of the ones we actually did, right?
That's correct, yeah.
Because we couldn't get the guy out of the house, and worse yet, it was a meth lab, we didn't want to blow anybody up. And I just wanted to make sure you understood that. We, Rotterdam Police, I don't think we don't enter homes. If we have to do it, it's another agency, usually a state police. Sorry. I can't do that.
So 2019, again, we had 25 total warrants. Again, at the bottom, you can see the breakdown of what those warrants were executed on. You'll see that there were 4 warrants issued with no-knock authority, and 2 were executed with that authority. One of them being the meth house. I'm not exactly sure which the other one was.
The other one was the old lady that got pushed down at Price Chopper, I believe.
Okay.
Robbery?
Yeah, the robbery, I believe.
You could be right.
Yeah.
It could be wrong.
It could be.
Does anybody have any questions with this slide?
If you needed to know that, if you really want to know that, we can go pull a record like that. That's something we really want to know. We didn't remember too bogged down in detail.
Is there anything that you do extra with the no-knock that you don't do with a regular search warrant in terms of like verifying information and that type of stuff? Is there like a different level of overlook on a no-knock?
I don't think that, no, I don't think so, because any search warrant, we're going to do our due diligence and make sure that we have the proper information, and we're not going to put a search warrant before a judge unless we know that everything on there is valid. So I don't think that there's anything different we do to get the search warrant, but we do look at it differently, and we do try to exhaust any possible way of executing that search warrant without using the no-knock authority, because we know that that's just not as safe. So we always try to, sometimes we'll sit on a target and we'll sit there for 6 hours, which does cost a lot of overtime. And we'll sit on this house maybe and wait for that person to come out and pull them over in a vehicle. It's more time consuming that way, but it's safer. So we always try to do it that way.
The assault suspect from Draper Avenue, Bishop Avenue, the knife, we sat periodically for days, I believe, didn't we? Didn't it go a couple days? With the state police out and wherever it was, Princetown or?
Yeah, that was when we did the search warrant on the residence there.
Yeah, wherever he lived. I forget where he lived.
Oh, yes, when he lived out.
Yeah, we sit for like a day and a half.
Yeah,
we sat literally,
We did the search for the house.
did it for 6 or 8 hours one day, said, he's not coming out, we'll come back tomorrow. We went back out the next day and sat for X amount of hours. He did come out. They arrested him outside the house in his car, then they just walked in the house because he was the only one in the house. They didn't have to kick any doors down. Those are the things we try to do. And again, sometimes to our own detriment, because it does cost a lot of money, often, but we try not to be driven by money. I know the town supervisor doesn't want to hear that, but we try to be driven by safety first. Yeah, no, I understand, but, like everybody else, money does matter.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
I think what she was trying to ask is, what do you do special in a warrant? What do you present to the judge to get the no-knock authority?
So for no-knock authority, you have to show that either there's an emergency type situation where you need to get into that house because maybe there's somebody in the house that could be injured, or you have to show that the evidence that you are looking for could be destroyed. So for instance, if you're looking for drugs, you have to show that if you knocked and announced yourself, they may be able to destroy the evidence. So you have to show that to the judge, or he will not sign that kind of a warrant.
And understand that's based upon the totality of the circumstance. It may change. If we're looking for somebody and we think there's 1 gram of heroin, well, that can look on the toilet. If we're looking for somebody, and thankfully this doesn't happen in Rotterdam, there's 60 kilos of heroin, well, that's not going on the toilet. You know what I mean? There's different, and we present all of that to the judge, and the judge makes a decision on what we're supposed to do, or if he's going to allow us to.
Okay, any other questions on search warrants? This is our last slide for search warrants.
Where would you say would be the threshold between when the warrant itself, like I know you said that you'll maybe stayed out of house or something like that, but is there a dividing point where like it's not a no-knock, but you get to a point where you realize that they're not going to get in, so now you've got to actually facilitate the entry. You just...
You mean, if we don't have a no-knock, we're not entering it without knocking?
Right.
So you're saying...
Once you knock and they're not coming in, but you know they're in there, then what do? You just...
Honestly, I don't think we would, if we felt as though, let's say it was a dangerous situation, we had information that the man in the house was wanted for assault, but had a weapon, and like, these are the things we review,
Right.
and, he has 3 convictions for assault with a weapon. Well, we would be concerned about that. If we didn't have a no-knock, we would probably go back to the judge. We probably would make that decision initially. Your Honor, here's why we want it.
Right.
If we, and I don't know this circumstance ever took place, where we said, let's not get a no-knock, and then we sat and said, oh, now let's go back and get a no-knock. If we don't have a no-knock, we're not entering without knocking. Now, Bill, does anybody remember a circumstance where we didn't have a no-knock, but we were wary and just knocked on the door? I don't personally remember that. That doesn't mean it would happen. I'm getting older, I forget things, but I'm trying to think of a situation where we thought somebody may be in danger. When I say that, the suspect is armed and dangerous.
Yeah, nothing coming to mind, no.
Yeah, I don't think we're gonna walk up to that door and knock. If we didn't have one, we're gonna go back to the judge and say, we'd like to amend this, and here's why. But I think we would do that originally. But even if we didn't think he had weapons, we do everything in our power to just like get him driving to work. Like we try, like the detectives will go out, where does he work? What shift does he work? Oh great, he's getting off at 4 o'clock. Let's pick him off on his way to work or way home from work. We'll interview him. Hey, who's in your house? That kind of thing. Some people are cooperative, some aren't. Some say, I don't want to talk to you. Then we got to reassess, like, I don't know who's in the house. But if they say, listen, I live alone, and we've confirmed that, and then we just walk in the door. We usually say to the guy, hey, we have a warrant for your home. You want to give us the key? Except we don't want to bust your door down. And most people say, yeah, I don't want to go to the front door. But, we do everything in our power to protect everybody. And I'll be perfectly frank, that starts with protecting the officers. I'm not going to pretend that's not a big consideration. It is.
Okay, any other questions on search warrants? This is the last slide for search warrants. Okay, this slide here is our unlawful possession of marijuana cases and arrests for the last 3 years. Unlawful possession of marijuana is a violation level crime. It's the lowest level drug crime that there is. This is possession of less than 25 grams of marijuana. Over here on the left, you'll see that in those 3 years, there were 121 total unlawful possession of marijuana cases. So that means we came across somebody with a low level amount of marijuana 121 times in those last 3 years. On the right, what you'll see is the number of times that we arrested somebody for those crimes. So we had 121 cases, we only arrested 71 people for that violation level offense. In a case where we're not making an arrest, in a situation like that, it may be, for instance, it may be a traffic stop where the officer may smell marijuana. We go up, we talk to the driver, and we ask him, hey, I smell marijuana, do you have any in the car? The driver says, yes, I have a small amount, it's in my pocket. In a situation like that, the officer may say, well, okay, well, he was honest with me, it's only a small amount, I'm not going to arrest him. You'll see that those offenses are broken down by race for actual total cases and total arrests. So for that 3 years, there were 65 white offenders of the 121 total, which worked out to be 54%. There were 46 black offenders of the 121 total, and that worked out to be 38%. Here you have other. These could be Asian, Indian, Guyanese. That's where other will be associated. So if you look over to arrests, the numbers are pretty similar. Of these 71 arrests, 40 were white, which worked out to be 56%, and 27 were black, which worked out to be 38%, which actually is the same exact here for total cases. So again, those are pretty similar. And does anybody have any questions on any other, for instance, on why we might let somebody go and not make an arrest for a UPM violation level offense? Yes.
Do you think those numbers are going down, and it's not broken up by year, but do you think there are more like 2017 because of going down?
Going down since 2017, you mean?
Right. Decreasing.
We can we didn't work it out that way on this slide. We can, so we can do that for the next meeting. We can do that. You guys that put the numbers
Could you guys
together.
make sure you write that down?
Would you have any kind of indication just from putting together the numbers?
Yeah, I can do, yes. I would say, over the last year, overall significantly, UPMRS just overall are completely down to almost close to nothing. To be honest.
And there may be a partial reason for that. UPMRS, a lot of them come from traffic stops. Not all of them. Sometimes we'll get a complaint that somebody is in the park smoking marijuana, or maybe parked in a vehicle smoking marijuana. That may not be a traffic stop, but it's a complaint generated from the public. Typically, these arrests are generated by officers and typically from traffic stops. Due to coronavirus, in the early stages of it, and still, we're starting to get back into doing traffic stops now, but in the early stages when we really didn't know where this pandemic was going and the extent that this the disease was going to get to, we told our officers, hey, let's not go out and do traffic stops. We didn't want to put them in that dangerous situation where they're that close with somebody, maybe not wearing masks. So for that period of time, you're going to see that we did a lot less traffic stops, which probably resulted in less UPM arrests as well. Okay, so this next slide is the total resisting arrest charges that we've had in our police department since 2001 to present. There have been 354 total arrests in that time, and this is the breakdown by race of those arrests. You'll see there were 292 white offenders that were charged with resisting arrest, 2001 to present, and 44 black offenders during that same time period. Resisting arrest it doesn't always require force, although a lot of times it does. A situation where you might charge somebody with resisting arrest where there is no force is let's say it's a shoplifting arrest or a vehicle stop and somebody runs from you. They know they're under arrest, but they took off, they ran, maybe you didn't catch them, you can charge them with resisting arrest. So typically they're not always a case where force is used, but in some cases they are.
That's an excellent statistic that speaks volumes for you guys, because that's like less than 20 a year over a 20-year span. I mean, that's fantastic. I mean, it speaks volumes for you guys are able to do without having to have people that you resist. I'd probably see that in a year. I think that our office easily.
And if I may interject, and this is, I guess, kudos to the PBA. At some point several years back, we had discussions with our officers about, traditionally it was when you went to an emotionally disturbed person and it became, we were going to take what we call a 941, which is an involuntary transport to the hospital for psychiatric exam. Oftentimes those turned into, for lack of a better term, wrestling matches. Officers would, to protect themselves, then charge that person with, obstructing or whatever, or assault, whatever was appropriate. And the PBA, quite frankly, members came to us and said, listen, we feel terrible doing this. Because it was a thing where they were protecting themselves from potential liability, civil liability. And they kind of said to us, the cops, we don't want to do this. And we got together and said, okay, and quite frankly, we haven't been sued, those types of things. And that probably is one of the reasons a lot of agencies, and us, 8, 10, whatever it was, we did the same thing. So anybody we forcibly took to the hospital under a psychiatric, we were charging them with pretty much at least obstructing, sometimes resisting, sometimes other things. But that's probably driven our numbers down because, quite frankly, the guys just didn't feel right about it. This poor woman or man just needs help. Yeah, I understand he took a swing at me or whatever took place. So I think, they being the cops, kind of put themselves in jeopardy. Because traditionally, I'm old enough to know that was the way it was. If you wrestled with somebody, they were under arrest. The charges were gone. the cops went away from that in the department whenever it was clear. It was prior to me being chief. After said, yeah, okay, let's do that. And it hasn't been a problem since, thankfully.
Any other questions with resisting arrest? Okay, next slide.
It is.
Oh, it is, okay. All right, so the next few slides here, we're going to show our total arrests by race per year. So you'll see here for the year 2017, there were a total of 1,001 arrests, and the racial breakdown of those 1,001 arrests is there were 656 white offenders and 261 black offenders, which comes out to 26%. There were 84 other and unknown offenders. Those are all arrests. Violation level, misdemeanor, felony level arrests. That's the total number of arrests. 2018, you see that it went up a little bit here, but the racial breakdown is pretty similar. Again, you have 717 white offenders, which was 66%, black offenders 25%, and other was 8% with 87. Same thing here. 2019, the number of arrests went down a little bit. There were 950 total arrests, and the percentage breakdown is somewhat similar there. Yes.
Maybe this is for Steve. Steve, what's our census in that?
You know, Miriam asked me the same question. And honestly, I go to the census for that. I mean, personally, you know, I wouldn't just rely on the census for that information. Yeah, but total population is roughly 30,000. I mean, it's under 30,000, between 29 and 30,000, I think is what the census is going to show.
Yeah, I can give you the school. The school is currently 83% Caucasian, so that's out of 2,850 kids, and that's probably representative of the community at large. I don't remember the breakdown, African American might only have been 6%, which seems low out of the remaining 17%, but I think we had some unidentified or multi-gender who, you know, so again, it seems to me the last time I looked at African Americans, we had over 100, 110, that's out of 2,800. So, but again, it's easier just to go from how many people are Caucasian, 83%. So that should give some context to what you're saying here.
So if our census is 30,000 roughly, out of those 1,000, well, that's 2020, 2019, how many people are actually living in Rotterdam out of the rest? Is it everybody? I mean, it must be people traveling through also, right?
So yeah, we didn't do that breakdown. So.
Okay.
We didn't do that breakdown by arrest, but I don't know. I'm not an expert on sociology, and you know, I'm not an expert on to break down numbers. But I don't know that looking at the demographics of only Rotterdam is the best way to do it. I could be wrong. We do have borders with the city of Schenectady and other counties as well. And I believe these numbers are from the 2010 census. So roughly, I believe the Black and African American population in 2010, which I believe that it's maybe a little bit more based on your numbers from the school. I believe it was 4% at the time. The county is, I believe, Black and African Americans are roughly 13% of the county. And then if you're looking at just the city of Schenectady, it's roughly 20%, maybe a little bit more than 20%. So those are numbers, when we looked at that, those are numbers that we looked at and concerned us, and you know, we wanted to take a look into that and maybe delve into that a little bit deeper.
We, because we had a concern about that, and none of us are statisticians or analytics type of people, we reached out to the John Finn think tank type organization in Albany to ask them to do this for us. Now, I'm not casting aspersions on that organization, because basically what the gentleman said was, yes, we would love to help you, but right now we're being inundated. Schenectady, all these other that are at a top priority, which we understand. That's fine. We've reached out a few other times. They just haven't been able to help us. And we don't have the ability, the background, the training, the education to really delve into the numbers and find out why. We're not sociologists. We just don't have that ability. If somebody knew somebody that could help us with that, we'd be thrilled to go through those numbers and figure it out. Because that was one of the things we consistently saw, that whatever the percentages are, depending on the numbers, well, wait a minute, it's coming out as 20% African American, we only have 4 or 5%. Why is that? You know, we can come up, and we have come up anecdotally why we think it is, but that really is not. That's pretty much our guess.
Well, you do have 2 colleges in the county, and I think the idea is to reach out to the colleges and ask them, because I'm sure there's a student somewhere that is willing to break down the data for you.
Is there, do you think somebody at SEC could
There's
a names?
a student who's
Okay.
looking for a project, and I am sure between Union and the community college, the help is available.
Okay, we'll reach out to both.
Okay, so we just switched to the next year here, 2020. You'll see that the total arrests look a lot lower than they were the past few years. And again, we would probably attribute that to the pandemic. Our officers were, and by our instruction, you know, we didn't want them out and, you know, dealing with the public in cases where it wasn't an emergency type situation where they really needed to be there. So that's probably why that number is the way it is.
Mike, sorry, is this, when you say total arrest, you're talking whether it be like a penal law violation, misdemeanor, felony? You're not distinguishing between a particular group. You're saying these are all the arrests we've made where you've actually physically taken them into custody, and you're not distinguishing the levels of the offenses and stuff, right?
No, that's all violation, misdemeanor, felony, those are every arrest. It does not include a vehicle in traffic, but we have numbers for vehicle in traffic, which we're going to get to here later on.
So are you treating DWIs and stuff as separate from those, or are DWIs included in that?
I believe
DWIs are included in those numbers. AUOs and suspended registrations are not.
Or not, okay, so I got you.
So for an AUO is aggravated unlicensed operation. That's a traffic ticket, but it's a misdemeanor traffic ticket.
And the number's also different, and that's only part of a year versus the others are from years.
True.
I mean, it looked like you guys are still keeping running during the COVID and stuff. I mean, that's.
Our numbers are down significantly.
Yeah, no, I got that. But
By
you're still
design.
running. But you're still, I figure out another probably 100, 150 to that. I mean, that's not too bad considering.
So all of those class-wise AUOs aren't included? Because Rotterdam has a large amount of they're a large amount of counters, AUOs.
Yeah.
But in all of those slides, they're not included in there?
AUOs are not included in this slide, but they will be. They are
In the past ones?
as we
It's
move
should be
forward
reflected.
in your.
Okay.
So we have some vehicle and traffic numbers that we're going to get to here in the
Okay.
next few slides. Okay, so proactive, the difference between a proactive arrest and a reactive arrest is most of what we do, and most of those arrest numbers that you saw up there are reactive arrests. That means a domestic situation where you're called. The police department is called and said, okay, there's a domestic at my house. We get to the house, we investigate. If we need to make an arrest, that's a reactive arrest. Shoplifters are reactive arrests. Walmart calls us and says, I have a person in custody. They stole from the store. That's a reactive arrest. We're getting a call for that. Burglaries, robberies, they can all be reactive arrests, and most of them are. So what these numbers show here is what our proactive arrests are. So for the, January of this year till August 31st, we had 8 proactive arrests. And then this is the racial breakdown of those proactive arrests. So during this same time, the slide previous, what was it, roughly 387 total arrests. Only 8 of them were proactive. That means the rest were reactive, meaning shoplifter, those kind of arrests.
If I may interject, he mentioned domestics. Be aware of this. Those are mandatory arrests. meaning the officer is mandated by state law. If I go there and, to my house, and cops walk in, and my wife says, he just punched me in the face, the cop has no discretion whatsoever. He's required by law to make the arrest. So a lot of our domestics are contentious because that happens, and now I'm required to make the arrest, and the wife or the husband or the whatever says, wait a minute. So it puts us, I don't want to say in a difficult situation, but it puts the family in a difficult situation. They've taken that, the state of New York is taking that discretion away from people in what's described as a domestic situation. Sorry.
And along those same lines, if we get called for a shoplifting arrest, let's say it's this really doesn't happen that often, or hardly ever, but let's say it's a piece of bubble gum that was stolen. We may not want to make that arrest, but if the victim wants that arrest, we have to make that arrest. It doesn't happen that often, but it can. So the reactive arrests, a lot of times we don't really have a say in whether or not we arrest that person. If the victim wants an arrest, we make the arrest. So 2019, you'll see we had 42 proactive arrests. I believe if you go back, it was 950 roughly. Yeah. 950 total arrests for 2019. So quite a bit of the arrests that we are making are reactive, meaning somebody's calling us and we're going and making an arrest. Proactive arrests are, a lot of times a DWI would be a proactive arrest. That means an officer's, he's in his patrol car, he sees a vehicle swerving in the road, he stops that car and it turns into a DWI. That would be a proactive arrest. Some drug arrests are proactive because some of them stem out of a traffic stop, so those would be a proactive arrest. Some of the drug arrests that we may do may not be proactive. It could be that a neighbor calls and says there's a lot of activity at the house next door. We do an investigation, and a few months down the road after we do our investigation, we're able to make an arrest. That's really what would be considered a reactive arrest because there was a complaint. Any questions on that?
The Bail Reform Act doesn't skew those figures at all, right? Because you're still making the arrest, it's just whether you can keep them.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. That doesn't affect. I mean, bail reform could, I guess, in some cases, if you, and we've had this in the past where you have a person who's, let's say we have a burglary string going through the town and in other jurisdictions. And there have been cases that we've worked where you can attribute 40, 50 burglaries to that person. In the past, when we would make that arrest, that person would typically be in jail for some period of time unless they were bailed out. But no, now they're being bailed. They get released. So these are our taser deployments. Since the inception of our taser program, where all of our officers currently have tasers, we got the tasers in 2008, and since 2008 we've had 79 total taser deployments. This is the racial breakdown of those deployments. 64 white offenders, and there were 7 black offenders over that time period since 2008. Tasers, a lot of times it's a great tool, and we see a lot of less injuries for officers, a lot less injuries for the people that we're arresting. So it is a great tool. Anybody have any questions with taser use? Okay. So this slide here is the total number of traffic stops with tickets. So this is, these are individuals who were stopped and then received a ticket. I'll get to the next slide, which shows the total number of tickets that were written. So, can we just
Yeah, you want me to just...
No, let's just go back to that first one there. So for that time period, 6/25 to 12/31 of 2019, there were 881 total stops where a person received a ticket. This is the racial breakdown of those stops and the people who received tickets. So you have You have 558 white drivers who received tickets. Of those 881 stops, that's 63%, and you have 17% of black drivers who received tickets for those stops. You have Hispanic drivers here, Asian drivers. Some of this, where it says 58 other drivers, and then 49 unspecified drivers, that could be errors in the officer maybe not checking a box on the traffic ticket.
The things are, the ticket system, does it still have the blank box? Does that denote?
It's a blank box that we have to fill in.
It doesn't say the date of birth, it doesn't say race.
It doesn't say race, no.
Which is a problem when the state instituted this in June. Basically what they said, on the ticket, there's a box. It's blank. It doesn't say name, date of birth, all those things that the other boxes say. It's blank. But if you click it, you then get the drop-down screen.
Correct.
Well, we told the officers, as of when they instituted that in June of 19, you gotta start doing it. Quite frankly, some of them, oops, I forgot, when we saw the ticket, we said, we didn't your ticket, there's no race associated with it. For whatever reason, the state has not labeled that box. And initially, early on, the first month, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, whatever it was, there were some people not doing it. I think we've pretty much corrected that, but early on, guys were just like, oops, I've been here 10 years, I've never checked that box. And it doesn't, so there was a little bit of a lag time. So some of that data early on, I don't think is really 100% accurate, because that's where I think that unknown, whatever comes from. Guys just said, oops, we forgot.
Okay, so the next slide here is the same thing. These are the number of drivers who received tickets January to September of this year. Again, the percentages and the breakdowns by race are pretty similar between white drivers and black drivers. You're still seeing that discrepancy here with, and that's just reporting, which we are working on. So this slide is the number of traffic tickets by race. So the previous slides were the number of drivers who received a ticket or multiple tickets. This slide is the number of the total tickets issued by race. So you'll see here for this time period here, there were 1,071 tickets written to white people. Now what that means is that's the total number of tickets, issued to a white person in that time frame. That's not traffic stops. The previous slides described just traffic stops. And then this is the same thing. The total number of tickets issued by race. Does anybody have any questions with those? I know it's a lot of information to look at. Okay.
Actually, I do have a question.
Sure.
Where race is concerned, is it the officer's discretion to determine that person's race, or is it asked?
Typically, is it
Typically,
asked?
I'd say it's the officer. We don't usually ask for several reasons. We don't want to upset someone on the side of the road where it could become more dangerous or more aggravated than it could be. So we go by what the officer believes at the time it stops.
And often if they're writing a ticket, the officer probably has, and not always, but the officer will have the license, which will have that information on it. We don't get a license from every person that we pull over, so, but most often, we do.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so this is just a yearly call volume for the period and the change in call volume for the period September of 18 to September of 19, which is depicted in blue, and in orange you'll see September of 19 through September of 20. So during that time frame, year over year, we received a 18%, 18.7 reduction in domestic calls. You see that we had just a slight increase here for burglaries. Larcenies remained roughly the same. Larceny could be, it could be shoplifting, it could be, we do have a problem with larcenies from vehicles, mostly unlocked vehicles. We try to get that information out to the public to make sure that they lock their vehicles, because we do not see where people are smashing windows and stealing property. It's usually people that leave their doors open, and they're just going through these cars and they're just looking for change or anything of value. So that larcenies are shoplifting and that kind of thing as well. Same thing year over year. Robberies, we had for the 2018 to 19 there was 3. 19 to 20 there were 5 robberies, just a slight increase. Assault was roughly the same. And DWI, last year you'll see that we had 62. Again, this year with coronavirus and the pandemic, that's probably why that number is a little bit lower, because we were just not stopping as many cars. Okay, so this is the crime rate comparison by month for comparing 2019 to 2020. This is the total. The numbers along the side here is the total, and so this was roughly 55 compared to 45 in the orange. So that was a reduction for the month of January. I guess significant here, I really couldn't explain why there was such a significant drop year over year in March. And then again here as well. I mean, I really can't explain why we would have that kind of a drop. Domestic is again, it's reactive. We respond to what we get called to. So.
Well, the virus hit about March, right? And we said we shut down.
Certainly good.
And
Shutting down, but it also meant that more people were home. So maybe that's a good thing. More people were home, and there were still less domestic situations.
And then September, you get football season soon.
Thanksgiving, family, holidays.
Mike, criminal contempt, are they included in your stats for domestics?
Yeah,
Well, yes.
We call those as a domestic. Okay, yeah, it's just, first knee-jerk reaction is, somebody hits someone, but just showing up when violating order of protection, cataloged as a domestic?
Yes. Okay, so this is the same slide here, comparing 2019 to 20, and this is for burglaries. Again, while you see this number 600%, you may think that that's like a large number, but the actual total burglaries for that month were 7, as opposed to 1. So 600%, I guess it's 600%, but it's not. We only went from 1 to 7. Any questions with burglaries? Okay. Same slide, comparing those 2 years for larceny. Typically January, these colder months we're seeing less larcenies, although January is right after Christmas, you get more people in the malls, so we do see an increased larceny in these early months, and then they begin to trail off here. I guess what's significant here is this year we've had a pretty big increase just this summer with larcenies, and a lot of that was related to larcenies from vehicles. You'll see here in another couple slides is we've also seen a pretty big increase in the number of stolen vehicles, which is related to that. Same thing. The people who are out going through these cars, if they happen to find a set of keys in a car that's unlocked, sometimes they'll take that car. So we have seen a pretty big increase in that just this past summer. Same thing here, year over year for robbery. But again, the numbers are fairly low here on the left side of the Any questions related to the robbers? All right, next slide. Same thing, these are our assault numbers. These are serious assaults. So sometimes in a domestic situation, there's a lot of times it's a harassment charge, which is a violation level charge. That's not. These are assaults, so these are more serious where there's some kind of an injury that took place. So these are the numbers by month. Again, here I don't really have an explanation, but again, it's not that big of a jump. We went from 0 in June to 4 this year for assault. Any questions with that? Next slide. So the same thing here, 2019 comparison to 20 for DWIs. We already spoke about why we see a reduction through here for DWIs through these months, and it's because of the pandemic and we were just less active with traffic. All right, next slide.
This is the last one.
So here, this is our stolen vehicle comparison. And again, like I talked about, towards this summer, we started to see an increase with the number of stolen vehicles. Again, just a couple months ago here in September, we had 0 the year before, and then we had 7 just in the month of September for just a couple months ago. And those are all related to people going through unlocked cars. Any questions?
Just as an aside, Mike, there are certain things that we do that we think, and again, I don't want to be driving the conversation, but there's certain things we do that we think are community oriented. Mike, you have a list of the things that we've done in the past and have been doing for a lot of years. I just want to give you a brief, if you could rattle those off for us, Mike.
Okay, so we do child safe IDs. What that is we send officers into our elementary schools. We have a system set up where we're taking a fingerprint of each child, and it's voluntary for the parents if they want this done with their child. We take a fingerprint of that child, we take a description of that child and a picture, and we put it on an ID, and we give that to the parent. The fingerprint it only remains in that system. It does not go into a national database or anything like that. That fingerprint is only for identification purposes. If that child were to come up missing, then that parent could either give us that ID, or once they gave us that name, we could go into our system and pull up that ID. So we do that in both school districts at the elementary level. We also have what we call our bike safety program. This is the Rotterdam PBA purchases protective gear, protective helmets for all first graders in both elementary schools, Chalmont and Mahonison. And they pick a day during that school year, and they go pass out those helmets to those students, and they fit the helmet to the student right in school. We do career day. I don't know. We may have done it at Mahonison at some point. I don't know that we have recently, but we do this at Chalmont. I believe it's the 10th grade class. Their class is instructed to pick a career, and then they have to do the research on that career. So let's say it's a doctor. That person would have to go through and do the research on what kind of schooling it takes, what the salary ranges could be for that, and then they have to do a report. And the school will bring in, so they have different sections for what the students choose. So if a student chooses an engineer, law enforcement officer, doctor, they bring in people from those different lawyers. They bring in people from those different jobs, and they go in and they talk to the students, and they talk to them about their project, and then the student is able to ask that person questions on that job that they chose.
It is done at Mahonison also. It's with the 8th grade.
And they still do that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Career day. We didn't do it last year because it's usually in March, I think.
Okay.
but every year they do it,
Okay.
and, officers are on the road.
Oh, okay. So at Chalmont, I've done it myself at Chalmont a few times, but we do pick other officers to go in and to do that for career day. We also adopt a family for Christmas. Sometimes we reach out to the schools to have them let us know who they feel might be the most needy family for that Christmas season, and then our PBA will adopt that family and purchase presents for that family. We also do the same type of thing for Thanksgiving. We pass out turkeys to families in both school districts. This is one thing that we're planning on doing this year, but with the pandemic, we're kind of putting it off. But we intend to do it once we're able to get back out into the community. It's Coffee with a Cop. So what we'll do is we'll advertise on the town website or on the police department website that at this particular day and location, there will be an officer or two at a Stewart's or a Dunkin' Donuts, and we'll be there just to take questions, interact with the community. If they have any questions, they can come and hang out with us and have a coffee and talk. So that's one thing we're looking at doing. We also have child safety seat instructors. These officers go to training where they learn how to install child safety seats into vehicles. Then we at any given time we hold one or two a year. Is it? So we hold one or two events a year where multiple agencies who have these types of officers who are trained get together in a Price Chopper parking lot, and then they'll have cars come through where they're just going through for that whole time. It could be like a whole day and they may do 100 cars in a day or something, where they're just installing child seats correctly, and they're teaching parents on how to install them correctly. We also have a stockpile of child safety seats that we have that are brand new. If we get into a car and we see one that's kind of old, or it's maybe not safe, it's cracked or something like that, we do provide brand new ones in those situations. We have four bikes that we use and utilize. We have officers who are trained as bicycle officers. Those officers are out on bikes throughout the community, and again, they're available to interact with the community on a different level than an officer in a patrol vehicle. We oftentimes in local business or community organizations may call us to come and speak on a certain topic, and if they reach out to us, we always oblige and go out to those meetings and speak on those topics that they may want us to speak. We have an Explorer program that we do in conjunction with the Schenectady County Sheriff. This program is still students range from, I would say, 14 years old up to 18 years old. Come into this program. It's an Explorer post. They come in, they get a uniform, obviously not the same kind of uniforms that we wear, but they wear a uniform, and they may come out, they may do ride-alongs with us and ride in the car with us. They may go to an event where a lot of times we use them at our Memorial Day parade. We usually hold a Memorial Day parade every year, and sometimes we'll need assistance with traffic control. So a lot of times we'll have the Explorers out assisting us with that. So they get a chance to interact with us, bounce ideas off us, ask us questions, and then they can kind of work side by side with us as well. Cop on Top is something that we've done in the past. So what this is, we raise money for Special Olympics, and that is where we're at a local Dunkin' Donuts or Stewart's, and we're actually on top of the building, and we're there to raise money for Special Olympics.
That's where we badge you when you go through the drive-thru for your change. Basically what we do.
Mike, don't forget Battle of the Badges.
Battle of the Badges, yes. We hold a annual softball tournament between the police department, local fire departments. Some of our council members also play.
And they let you play, Mike.
And then that's something that that's also to raise money as well. We also do Government Day once a year, and that's where students from both school districts who are in government-related classes, they come to the the town board meets with them, kind of goes over with them how the whole town board works, how the elections work, and just so they get an idea of how that works. They also come to the police department, and they come to our local court. Our judges actually go through like a mock trial with these students, and the students are able to watch a mock trial just to see how that works. They also take a tour of the police department, and they're there, and they can ask us any questions, which we do get a lot of questions. So that's something we do every year. And I think that's it for...
If I may dovetail off of Mike's Explorer Post ride-along program, and I'm offering this to you, and this is something we've always done. If some interested member of the community wanted to do a ride-along with us, we would facilitate that. If anybody wants to come and say, hey, can I get together, we pick a date, sign your liability waiver, and we'll let you ride around with a cop for 4 hours or 6 hours, whatever is appropriate. But we will do that. We've always done that because occasionally we have had people ask us. Quite frankly, we do a little background check to find out who's riding along with us. But after that, if they meet muster with us, we will do that. And I'll offer that to anybody here that would like to do that. That's not a problem. We can do that. And I wanted to mention one thing that I neglected to mention earlier. Currently, and since a long time, we've had in-car cameras that included microphones on the officer. So everything an officer does for at least 10 years, probably longer, 15, is at least audio. The in-car cameras are fixed cameras that shoot out the front of the police car. That's not always the most appropriate way to catch what we want to capture. We are now, and have been for about a year, demoing body cameras. We're in the process of deciding which camera is appropriate for us. The lieutenants have been doing that pretty much all year. You've gone through 3 or 4 different models, met with manufacturers. They've let us demo them, use them for a couple of weeks at a time. I think we're very close to making, they're very close to making the decision. It is an expenditure. It's going to be, stay please, about 80 grand just to purchase them. And then it's about 30 grand a year for the appropriate storage of data. Because all the data we get, we have to keep. But right now, everything's on audio with the caveat of if Officer Simmons is chasing a guy down the street, at some point he gets out of range for the audio to get back to the car. That does happen, unfortunately. But if and when we go to the body camera, the actual thing has its own internal technology that I don't understand. It's a magic box to me. But we are going there soon with, probably we'll have that up and running hopefully by early next year. That's something we're going to do. I know that's a big issue throughout the country. Right now, officers are required to have their mics on at all times. The camera's running. A lot of times the camera's just showing nothing because they're in a house or wherever they are. There are some privacy issues we have to deal with. We have to be able to, if I'm in your home and there might be juvenile issues, we have to be able to digitize, whatever it's called, and we're also wrestling with the issue of what do I do when somebody says, hey, I want that video. Well, that's foilable, but there's legal issues that we have to address, and we're doing that. Luckily for us, as I said earlier, being accredited for 20 years in essence, basically when the deputy chief reached out to the head of the state accreditation program, the first thing the guy said is, well, hang on a minute, you're accredited. And he said, yes. The guy said, well, listen, you're good. He said, you pretty much already complied with the governor's executive order, with the exception of a little language change. One of those language changes, and you'll see it if you look, and we'll be happy to go through those with you, but I don't want to drive this conversation. One of the changes is you have to explicitly ban chokeholds, because there's a new law. That being said, nobody in the Rotterdam Police Department, our training, our use of force manuals say, you will only use the techniques you were trained on. Well, I've been around 35 years. I wasn't trained on chokeholds. When the FBI trained me 35 years ago, they said, you don't do chokeholds. So nobody in this department, because I'm the old guy, has been trained on a chokehold. Therefore, by the chokehold transitive property, nobody can do it, with one exception under the law. if you're doing it to save your own life or somebody else. And if you look at our policy says that there's almost a contradiction there. You can't have a chokehold, but then at the bottom it says, if you chokehold, you will notify us immediately. Well, that's because I want to know you did something that was potentially illegal, and then I have to do an investigation to find out why you did it. And you as the officer, you're going to have to justify why you did it. Thankfully, to my record, I don't remember any officer ever using a chokehold because nobody's trained on it. Generally, like anything else, you react muscle memory the way you were trained. Since you weren't trained to use a chokehold, these guys don't use chokeholds. And to expand on what the deputy chief said, I'm old. When I came on, there was a lot of police wrestling matches. We don't have wrestling matches anymore. Many, because of the taser. Two things. It's very effective in incapacitating people. And once they're incapacitated and that charge stops, most people are like, and there's a fantastic YouTube video that Deputy Chief being interviewed, tased, if you want to go look at it. It's pretty powerful. And secondly, many people, when they're being, because you have to warn somebody, I'm going to tase you. Most people, you guys back me up, when you say I'm going to tase you, if they're in their right state of mind, they say no thank you. So it's cut down on a lot of the fights, chokeholds, all those things that result from wrestling with a suspect. We don't wrestle with suspects like we used to. Good thing, I think it's a good thing. But certainly a good thing, and nobody's getting injured. Officers and suspects don't get injured the way they used to. As long as the camera system should be up and running. You have the policies we gave you, but I don't want to be the ones handing you stuff. I want you, if there's something you need from us, if you're thinking, hey, I want this policy. We have a manual that's probably that thick. It's 6 or 8 file cabinet drawers that the state requires us to keep for this accreditation manual. Some of them are ridiculous as far for your purposes. You know, ordering the officers that they got to wear their seatbelt and how we handle petty cash and all those types of things. None of them are really germane to what you want to know, I don't think. But if there is anything you can think of, I'm pretty sure we have a policy covered. If you say, hey, I want to see your policy on pick a topic, I bet you we have a policy that covers it. The state is pretty rigid, the accreditation council, on what we're going to do and what we're going to have policies on. And that's what I want to offer you. If you have something you feel as though you need from us, we'll provide it. If you feel as though there's something we're not doing, please let us know, because we don't have a penchant on all great ideas. You know, sometimes we get very myopic and we're dealing with what we do every day, and you get blinders on and you don't think outside the box. But if you could provide any input to us, we'll take it and we'll be happy to work with anybody. That being said, unless I have an objection, if I may use a court-related term, I'd say this meeting we can conclude with one exception. I want to know, we thought doing this in person initially would be a good idea. We thought we could social distance. I hope we accomplished that. We were thinking about maybe doing a Zoom type meeting. If you want to do those in the future, you have to tell us, and this is what I'm really trying to do. And quite frankly, a lot of people didn't show. We're going to reach back out to them. They may want another meeting. Where do you think we go from here? Does anybody have any thoughts, input whatsoever? Where would you like us to go from here? Does anybody have anything for us? If you're uncomfortable telling me now, which I understand completely, you could email us.
You mean whether we do Zoom or come in person?
Or another meeting at all. What do you want to discuss at another
Earlier
meeting?
meeting time would be great.
Pardon me?
Little people are up at 5 o'clock in the morning, so an earlier meeting time would be great.
Well, we thought we'd go in the evening because most people are working and they can't get
I mean, could we even do
They
a
can't get here at 9
or
a.m.
something, or, you know.
And do we need, quite frankly, I feel forced to hold multiple meetings because, well, that's what everybody else is doing. But I don't think everybody else, when I say everybody else, the city of Schenectady, the city of Albany, the bigger jurisdictions with, thankfully, bigger problems, they're breaking down, they're having multiple meetings. And we're actually supposed to, because I'm not supposed to be in charge here, I don't want to impose on anybody. I'm supposed to ask for like a moderator, somebody from the group that wants to run the show. And I'm supposed to sit out there, or I should be listening to you people. You guys tell us what you want. And that's I think there's one takeaway from here is I want you to understand that. We're here to listen. We do want to take this as a learning process. We want to take this as an opportunity to learn and get better. If you have something for us, please give it to us, and we'll do it. If you need something from us, we'll get it to you, whatever it may be. If you want to write a law, pick a date and a time, and we'll take care of that for you. Whatever you need to help you decide how this community, how this police department should be policing this community, we're okay with it. Now, something as simple as, society has decided, and quite frankly, some of the stats, and again, I'm speaking anecdotally, but I believe in being brutally honest, to my detriment sometimes. But I believe in being brutally honest. I think some of the numbers we see for stolen vehicles and larcenies from cars, and this is anecdotal, speaking to officers are very reluctant in some cases, and it's depending on the officer. They're saying, because of the new social justice initiatives, normally at 1 o'clock in the morning, I see a guy walking down street X, I pull up and say, hey, what's going on? Where are you headed? It's 1 o'clock in the morning. I'm not doing it anymore, because technically that person is not committing a crime. He's just walking down the street. And they're shying away from those things because, right, wrong, or indifferent, they're fearful of an escalation of those processes. I can't prove that. And we've stressed to the cops, they're good about it, but they are human. They don't want to put themselves in a situation where subject X is just walking down the street. I got no right to approach him. But normally, they would say, hey, what are you doing? It's 1 o'clock in the morning, what are you doing? And sometimes those things escalate from there. But I think they shy away from that. We've tried to stress to them, well, look at the numbers, guys. We've had all these cars, you saw the vehicles stolen. We've had all these cars gone through. We need to do something about this. I don't know, quite frankly, what to tell officers when some have brutally honestly told me, I'm a little leery about doing those things. It's hard for me to say, what I say is follow the law. I'm not going to bore you with the bore levels and Terry stops and all that nonsense. But I want to make sure everybody understands, you tell us what you want. Thank you.
I personally like in-person meetings, but I'm fine with this for everybody else on Zoom. I definitely think that there is a need, but maybe not a large need, I don't think there's a huge need. But from working in the court, there are times when I get complaints from some of my clients, and there's nowhere to go with those. So even if it's like once a month, I think that's a good idea.
Once a month for this meeting?
That's just my opinion. Maybe once a month, and if there's nothing to talk about, then maybe once every 2 months. But I think just starting out, I'd be okay with once a month.
Okay, and when you say once a month, just so I'm clear, do you mean into perpetuity? Like just...
I think until, if we find that there's nothing to say and there's nothing to discuss, then maybe you can move it out 2 months. Okay. But I think it gives at least an opportunity for the public to ask questions, or if they have an issue, to bring it.
Yeah, and I want to emphasize this to you. I'm not sure if everybody knows that she's a public defender or a conflict defender, which is in essence the same thing. But if some of your clients have issues with what my officers did, you please call me, have them call. I obviously, if I don't know, I can't do anything. So I don't care how small they think it is, or you think it is, or I think it is. Here's what I can guarantee you. It will be investigated to the extent we can. And for our own protection, I want to do that. And we'll do it. And we'll do it completely and thoroughly. If you want to set up a system where you bring those to us, and obviously it's going to be hard to do it anonymously, because when you say this happened on this date, it's not going to be tough for us to figure out who the individual you're talking about is. But if you want to, maybe we can talk about that. Something, I don't want, because I understand it's an intimidating thing to go to a police department and say this officer did this. But maybe then we could facilitate that through your office or through you individually. I have no problem doing it. I don't want people having problems with my officers and me not knowing that. Because I think, again, being the person I am, they know, these guys who are responsible for it, they don't want me walking into their office saying, what is this?
And I think another thing I wanted to say is, when you read off the things that you do in the community, I thought that was amazing. I really didn't know about any of them. Is there somewhere where there's like a calendar of events?
We put them on, Claude, we put them on our website usually, right, the Rotterdam Police Department website. I don't know if we put them on the town. And I know we have a Twitter. I don't know how to use it, but I know we have one. We can do that too. Right. But, listen, I'll send them to you. give me an email address, I think we'll have it, we can send those to you. We'll send them to anybody that wants them. Quite frankly, we want people to participate.
And another thing I was considering is I know a lot of people come into Rotterdam Park with their kids, and I talk to their kids, and probably not because of these police officers, but from what's going on in the world and in the nation, they have a certain view of police officers. So maybe if we can incorporate something where I can gather the kids of people whose parents may have been arrested or saw things on TV and they have some perception of officers, and we can do a program, I think that'd be
Yeah.
great.
That's the kind of thing, that's easy, for us anyways. Like, we can make officers, and what I would like to do, if we're gonna do that, is rotate the officers, give them an opportunity to meet with all the different ones. I don't want the same guy there. You know, we're what we are, warts and all, and we'll put that out there to the world. But yeah, can you guys write this stuff down?
I
So
have a question too, when you were talking about community work, and I think it's amazing what you do. But my question is, do you partner, like, you definitely partner with schools, your SROs. Do you partner with the other agencies in the community? For example, you know, working with Great Crisis or, you know, and doing some collaborative work with other groups in the
Yep.
community to address social issues that police are involved with, or substance abuse comes to mind as well. We partner with substance abuse coalition forces and do some preventative stuff or proactive stuff or just collaboration on not necessarily social justice issues, but they have that overlap.
Yeah, there's a lot of different programs that we get involved in. I think you mentioned Great Crisis. We are involved with people from that type of agency. There's people that work for Child Protecting Better or well versed in that. We have a good relationship with them. We attend monthly domestic violence meetings. We're involved in the multi-disciplinary team, which is essentially CPS. So there's members of the DA's office, there's police representatives, there's CPS social workers. So yeah, we are heavily involved in a lot of those things.
There's also mental health crisis teams that are becoming more accessible to us as well. And oftentimes when we...
Do you work with Global Crisis?
Yes. Yeah, and oftentimes when, you know, before a situation where the person shouldn't, or it's traumatic for them to be removed from their house to be transported for treatment in the hospital, if they can be kept in their homes where they feel safe, Global Crisis will assist in that and making an evaluation to help us out. So we also do collaborate with them to make better. We're not mental health professionals either, and they've been great help in those situations.
The problem we have in those situations, when somebody's calling us, the individual's usually in crisis. And not that these people won't come, but they're 45 minutes away or whatever the case may be. And I need help this minute. So the poor cop at 2 a.m., you know, there he is, or she is. But we do collaborate with all of those people. All right, we've got those all written down, right? Okay, excellent. So we'll work on those. We will at least put something out. I don't want to, for another monthly meeting. Just please bear this in mind. Some of the things that you said, I think we can incorporate into complying with the governor's instructions. We have to have this presented to the board probably by March 1st as what they think we should do. And I don't want to tell you what we should do. I want to listen. So if everybody's okay, nobody has anything else for us, I'll get you out of here tonight. We'll put this together, we'll put another meeting together, and we'll work on those initiatives there. And I thank you for coming. We're going to reach out to the other entities that didn't come and hope that maybe next time they will send a representative so we can move forward. Thank you all for coming. Really appreciate your time.
And I'll just say, with the, I know we didn't get to some of the policies that you guys have. If you guys are going through that and you have a question, you have my card there, you can call me. Most of you have my email address as well. You can email me either way, whatever you're comfortable with any questions that you guys might have going through some of that stuff. Or anything that you'd like to see us present maybe at our next meeting. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks.
Thank you.